snap it, and it's Trey Burton who throws, caught, Foles, touchdown.
And here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. Picked off. Look out. Get past Manley. And it's Tracy Porter taking it all the way. Touchdown, New Orleans.
You're listening to the Pigskin Project, the world's #1 football podcast. Now, with more insights on all things football, here are your hosts, Ben Hansen and Ryan Matthews.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 16th episode of the Pigskin Project. If you would give us just a second, I don't know why it's not. Hold on. Why isn't it working like this? I'll edit this out. Hold on. Can you see us on screen?
I cannot.
Okay.
I can't.
Maybe it's because this overlay, maybe. Hey, there we are. Okay, cool. All right. We're here. We're back. Pardon that. Anyway, so yeah, no, exciting week last week. Lots of fun. That whole draft show was just an experience, man. I think that was probably the most fun on an episode that I've had, even though that it was 4.5 hours long or whatever.
Yeah, it was long. Like you said, I had so much fun on it. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. And obviously for everybody who's watching live or on video, it's kind of good to be home too. Finished up first year of college. I'm sure you just finished up as well, didn't you? Or this is your last week?
I'm finishing up this week, yeah.
Yeah.
Taking a little bit of a break in terms of work, but we're getting there.
Yeah. But it was fun. Last week was again one of the best days in football, pretty much outside of the Super Bowl. But there is some news that we got to get into this week.
Yeah, no, it was a pretty eventful week as well. I don't know how much of an impact you see this. I know today Deebo Samuel actually followed the 49ers again. I don't know if that necessarily means that he's back or not. What did you want to say about that really quick before we dive into some other news?
Obviously, GMs and head coaches and everybody they lie, because if they're going to be honest, they start to lose value. But the 49ers organization, as a whole, and especially their GM John Lynch, he has pretty much made it clear that they're not trading him. And they're like, all right, if he's going to sit out for the year, he's going to sit out for the year, but it sucks to suck. We're not trading you. And obviously, as of right now, that's what it sure looks like, because it sounded like the Jets offered 10 during the draft, and they turned it down. And if they were going to trade him, the 10th overall pick would have been, a sweet spot for them to get, and they turned it down. So I know
the Lions offered him as well. They not only that, but I think they threw in a 3rd round pick as well. That's a lot just for one wide receiver.
And they turned it down. So I think all signs point to them kind of with them turning down those trades, and their GM John Lynch being pretty consistent that they're not going to trade him. And obviously we see him following him back. I think he's a 49er. That might age well, or that might not age too well, but yeah, I think he's a 49er.
So unfortunately for you Eagles fans, and obviously we'll get to the good news, Tyrann Mathieu has signed with the Saints, and Matt's probably super happy about it. But, unfortunately, though, it just didn't fall through for your Eagles.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest. Again, we have a little group chat, too, because believe it or not, me and Ryan, we do talk about football outside of the podcast.
Yeah.
I kind of thought with how the Eagles draft turned out, mind you, they drafted really well, and, we'll get to that at some point. But they drafted really well. But I thought for sure that with them not drafting a safety at all, that Honey Badger was going to be an Eagle. I'm like, it is for sure. Put it, stamp it, sign it, seal it. He's an Eagle. And then right before he signed, the day before he signed, it came out that they were making a strong push for him. And then at that point, it kind of did seem that it was kind of destined, and it's a perfect fit. I'm pretty sure he grew up in New Orleans. I knew he grew up in Louisiana. He went to school at LSU. So I'm not too surprised. It's a shame, but he got a good player. But he did sign a bigger contract than what I thought. So I'm not too mad that we didn't sign him, because it's more than I definitely would have paid him.
Right. And then in other news, your Eagles actually waived offensive lineman Nate Herbig as well. We had talked about this one-on-one just because I know the Bears have like a very, very strong need in offensive line, and he is a younger, player.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to say to those that, may not know who he is or how he plays?
Yeah, no, Nate Herbig, again, like you said, he's strictly an interior offensive line. He can't play tackle, but he does have nice interior versatility. Dude can play left guard, center, or right guard. I would say he's a high-end backup at definitely the guard positions. He can play center. Probably wouldn't want him there, but he can play it as kind of like as a backup starter. Again, you probably wouldn't want him there, but he can do it. And he's a good player, and I'll tell you, a lot of Eagles weren't too happy that we cut him, because again, he's a really good bench piece. But he got buried behind just some other players. Again, we drafted a center this past year, and he'll be our backup center, because he's not gonna play right away because Jason Kelsey. We drafted a guy in the second round last year, Landon Dickerson. And I think our GM, he kind of came out and said it as well, but he kind of wanted to give Nate a chance to actually play, because he just wasn't going to get that here, and he's such a good player that he should be playing somewhere. So he's a good player for anybody who gets him. You probably don't want him to start, but he's a high end backup.
Okay,
love the guy.
We're gonna get to the big draft news, but first off, I want to talk about DeAndre Hopkins getting suspended for 6 games. There was a troll post. I don't know if you saw it or not, but fortunately, I should say, fortunately, he has not tested positive for beaver tranquilizer, despite what other people have to say. I don't know if you heard about that, but
I did.
yeah. For some reason, people said that he tested. I don't understand. Anyway, yeah. What were your reactions when DeAndre Hopkins he tested positive, and now he's suspended?
It's such a weird situation, because the illegal substance policy in the NFL is there's a lot of stuff on that list that probably shouldn't, and he kind of came out saying that he has been using the same stuff that he's done throughout his career. It's never been a problem. And then this year he kind of got flagged for it. So I don't think it was like a steroids, and again, I could be talking out of my butt right now.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was steroids. Like there have been people who've been suspended for, even longer. The Eagles right tackle, Lane Johnson, got suspended for taking I forget the exactly what it was, but it was like some vitamin, and it was on like the illegal substance list. Wow. And it was like it's a vitamin. So yeah. So that list is kind of big for sure, but and it now it kind of makes sense, and we'll get to it, but the Hollywood Brown trade makes a lot more sense now.
Which it was, we'll go ahead and segue right to it. I also heard that that move was kind of influenced by DeAndre Hopkins failing, and getting suspended. That to me is just kind of showing there's a little bit more going on behind the scenes that we know of immediately. If you had told me on draft night that he was going to get suspended, I would have been like, no, shut up. No. But, after that trade, I don't think that Hollywood Brown is a number one option right now. But I do think that he wasn't utilized properly in that offense from Baltimore as well, even though that he did put up solid numbers as well. So I'm excited to see what he can do in Arizona, just overall. But, as far as that goes, another big trade happened, involving the team that's behind you in that flag. The Eagles traded for A.J. Brown, which if you guys had listened to or watched our last episode, you had seen or heard Ben's reaction. But now that it's kind of settled down a little bit, the reality's kind of settled in. I want to know your thoughts right now and where your head's at in terms of not only just that trade, but where the Eagles stand as a franchise right now, or a team right now.
I think I love, first off, just looking at the move in general quick. I love the move. And I mean, for what other teams like the Dolphins had to give up for Tyreek Hill, and for what the Raiders had to give up for Adams, I thought it was more than fair. We gave up a first and a third versus they gave up like 2 firsts or a first and a second, so we gave up less. We paid less, and given he is a worse wide receiver, but he's still an elite wide receiver, and he paid less. And for us to make that trade and still have our top day 2 picks, because again we still picked in the second and third round, for us to be able to do that while trading for one of the most elite wide receivers in the league, I mean that's ecstatic, and I think this is really going to help Devontae Smith. I feel like he gets overshadowed so much now. But for him to come in and learn from a dude that has produced and has really been an elite level wide receiver, for him to learn from that is huge. But also, pretty much all we saw last year was them double covering him. And for them to kind of not double cover him, it's going to be really good for him. Here, you're on mute. I'm not mute. Yeah, I don't know why.
Sorry. Just as far as that Eagles offense goes, I'm excited to see, just for you, how good that offense is going to be. I mean, go for
it. Okay, so I mean, let's run through it. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are definitely top 5 in the NFC East, and I really think you could argue probably number 2 or 3. I would argue probably 3, not in the East, just in the NFC. Probably 3, I think, behind Evans and Godwin and Kupp and Allen Robinson. But I think after that, I think you can argue that they have, I would say, the best offensive line in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They have a good running game. Jalen Hurts was around the 15th best quarterback. And that's the biggest question surrounding this offense now is, can he take that next step? Jalen Hurts is a fine quarterback, but we really want that elite play out of our quarterback. And if he can't produce at an elite level with this cast around him and those 2 guys, Dallas Goedert, that's arguably a top 5 tight end in the league, the best offensive line. If he can't produce in that offense, I don't know when he could. So that's the biggest question, but it'll be fun. And I think they're definitely now, if they're not a playoff team, if they don't reach the playoffs, it's a disappointment. You kind of got to expect them to reach the playoffs at this point.
Yeah. So, in terms of other, news, I think that does it for this week. It was kind of a quiet week after the draft, despite, what's probably going on behind the scenes. I'm expecting a lot of teams to be doing extensive work on the remaining free agents. We had talked about it privately, different free agents that I would potentially look at for teams in need of, the other things that we had talked about, Chicago, for example, really needing that wide receiver spot. And we'll get to that as well. But, I do want to touch on just like the top, the top wide receivers at that position, and really what my mindset is. We didn't really talk about it too much behind the scenes, but so like the biggest name on the market, well, one of the biggest names I should say, is Jarvis Landry. Okay. A lot of Bears fans are like, that's a big name. I think he could help us out, blah, blah, blah. Strictly because of his height, I don't think that he's a possibility for Chicago. You need a number one option. And, if you have a guy like Darnell Mooney, I feel like that's just not happening. Julio Jones is also available, but like, unless it's for a really, really cheap deal with incentives to, make a lot more if, you play, it's just, it sucks because he used to be really good, but now that he's not, it really hurts. So I don't think he's an option. You see OBJ, and he's probably the most intriguing option, but I think that that's the one that the teams are kind of monitoring pretty closely, mainly just because of his injury status and how he's doing in rehab and stuff like that, because they obviously want the same players before. But if, he's going to keep getting injured like this, or, how likely is it to, re-tear this ACL that he's already torn before? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like as a team that needs wide receiver, you're definitely looking at him like, ooh, maybe not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I've been pretty vocal on my stance on him. I think after, again, we'll see how long it takes him to play, because that's a question. He'll probably end up being on the PUB list, so he'll have to sit out for I think it's 6 weeks, for those who don't know about that.
He's expected to return in October. So
yeah, so I'll miss a little bit. So I think any team that can get him up, I think you're probably looking at like a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
I've been vocal. I think he has all the talent in the world. I think any team that gets him is, obviously we'll see how the contract looks like, because the market for wide receivers right now are freaking crazy. But I think any team that gets him, I think the Bears should give him a long looking at.
Yeah. So. At least do the research on him, and then, when it comes down to like big names, the only other big name that's left is T.Y. Hilton. And he's kind of disappeared out of the spotlight for a while. And it sucks because like he used to be one of my favorite wide receivers for a while. But just last season, he had 331 yards and 3 touchdowns on a team with a weak wide receiver core. Like, when it comes down to it, it's just like, I don't know if that should be a number one option,
No, I don't think now. Obviously, in his prime, dude was one of the best wide receivers in the league. I think he's far from that now. But I think he's far from that now, but he would be a perfect guy for Mooney to learn from, because again, he did produce at a very high level at one point in his career. And obviously they're not the exact same player, but their playing styles are very, the fast, twitchy wide receiver, who kind of wins downfield, and that's exactly what Ty was. Make the catch, get yards after the catch, make a play. And for him to kind of learn from that would be an awesome guy. So I think, you can't expect him, if you guys were deciding, we can't expect him to be a number one guy, but he's a perfect mentor, at least, to a guy like Darnell Mooney.
So next up, I do want to talk about, there was this Instagram post that I saw that I actually sent to you. It was the offensive rookie of the year futures bets, the odds and everything. There are a lot of these that I find questionable, but I want to go pick by pick to kind of get your feel for them, and then I'll go pick by pick for mine to see like just how possible it is in my book compared to yours, if that's cool. Starting off, we're gonna go with Kenny Pickett at plus 550 odds to win offensive rookie of the year. What are your thoughts as far as Kenny Pickett goes?
I wouldn't
He's the favorite.
Pickett. I know, he was the number one quarterback drafted. Again, he was the number one player drafted at the most important position in football.
Dare I say he's not even going to win the job?
Well,
I don't think he will.
I'm not willing to bet he's not going to win the job, because one of his kind of what he was talked about the most coming out of the draft was he is pro ready. But he might not win the job at the very start of the season, but I'm willing to bet by week 4 he's in. But
I feel so bad for Mitch.
Yeah. I don't think any of these. I just any of the quarterbacks. And I think there's another quarterback on this list that we'll get to eventually.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking any of the quarterbacks. And he just plays in such a good division. I don't know how much winning he's gonna do.
Right.
And that's my concern more than
Breece
anything.
Hall at plus 650 is number 2. Obviously, we'd love to see it happen, judging by how good of a guy he is, and his family was really cool.
Yes.
But I mean, realistically, though, it's a New York Jets running back. And, their offensive line wasn't terrible last season. They did make improvements in the draft. Is he a top, pick for that? Or,
I think so. Again, their offensive line was pretty banged up throughout the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to a guy later on in this list eventually, but with them adding more passing targets for Wilson to throw to, that kind of opens up the field a little bit more, and that kind of forces them the defense to kind of play in between, and they can't completely focus on the run. And he's just such a good freaking player that running backs usually come in and produce almost immediately. I think he's worth that. And the offensive line, like I said again, wasn't too healthy last year. I think I'm not willing to say I have a pick for this, but I think he should be. I think number 2 is fine. I'm not gonna poop on it like I did with Kenny Pickett at 1. Kenny Pickett should be nowhere near 1. But
so up next we have Drake London at plus 700. I want to know your thoughts on that one as well, because I find that one. Really, you think so?
My thing is he's not the number one. He's not the number 1 target on his team. Kyle Pitts was a dog last year. He's the number 1 wide receiver, but that doesn't mean he's the number 1 target. And my worry about him, and this is the worry about all the wide receivers on this list, unlike a running back, he's going to get the ball. There's not a lot of in between, but there's a middle guy when it comes to wide receiver, is your quarterback. And I'm a little worried about his quarterback situation.
Yeah,
and that's my concern versus anything. I think he'll play fine, but it's the guy throwing the football that concerns me just a little bit, whether that's Desmond Ridder or Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. And then next up we have Garrett Wilson at plus 800, 4th overall for offensive rookie of the year. Your thoughts on this one as well?
I think I like this better than what I like Drake London, but I still think I still wouldn't feel too comfortable about it, because again, you're kind of banking on him taking the next step, Zach Wilson, to take the next step, because again, like I said, for a wide receiver to be productive, they have to have a good quarterback. So you're banking on him. Again, I think he's a fine talent, and again, I would have him over Drake London strictly just for the quarterback situation, because at least I know Zach Wilson has played in the league. Marcus Mariota has been known for time and time for being a running quarterback, and Desmond Ridder's problem in college was ball accuracy. So it doesn't sound too good for that. So
I think we can argue about that one as well, but we'll get there. Treylon Burks at plus 850, number 5.
Out of all the wide receivers, this is the one I like the most.
Yeah.
Yes. Because I trust his quarterback the most, and he's the number 1 target on his offense.
Okay.
I do think I think that he's competing the least for the targets. Again, you got to worry about the Titans just because they are such a run heavy offense, and that would be my concern.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I trust Tannehill to get him the ball at least accurately for most points. And again, he is the number 1 wide receiver. He's not. I love Robert Woods, but Robert Woods is not a number 1 wide receiver.
I think he can be.
Yeah, but he's not number one wide receiver over Treylon Burks.
At least, I mean, I feel like he can be right now. Honestly, I think that's why they traded for him. I mean, at the moment they still had AJ Brown, so like that was obviously the clear-cut number one wide receiver on the team. But I mean, I think Robert Woods can be. Just putting that out there.
He's a very low end. He's a good wide receiver 2, low end wide receiver 1. But again, just as terms of targets, he's fighting for them the least. Because you got to worry about Elijah Mitchell and Corey Davis for the Jets. You got to worry about Kyle Pitts, for the Falcons. So
okay, I'm getting eager. We're gonna go to. I'm gonna say my picks or not like picks, but my takes on the first 5, and then we'll go on the second 5. For you, and then I'll go after that. So Kenny Pickett for me. Hear me out. I don't think he's winning the job. A lot of people are saying, even Mike Tomlin's saying, like, there's a chance. I just don't see it. I think Mitch is actually going to impress a lot more people than, people give him credit for. All that you've seen is a little bit of preseason play from him. And I think that he's shown a lot better flashes than he did when he was with Chicago. And so because of that, I'm saying absolutely not for Kenny Pickett. And even if it's just there's too many good options at wide receiver for him to actually, be a leader. So as far as Breece Hall goes, it just all depends on how healthy that offensive line can stay. I think that he's an interesting pick, but I don't think that I would put him among the best, if that would make sense. I feel like he could win you some money, but it's not going to be anything crazy. Drake London, I think, is going to be a very good player, but I don't think he's going to be that this year strictly because of the quarterback situation. Unfortunately, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Marcus Mariota can do. So, I mean, by all means, I wish him the best, but I don't think that I would put him over a couple of receivers that are actually in the second 5. But Garrett Wilson, I think, would be cool. I think he'd be a good. I think he'll be a good fit in New York. He's a good start to an offense. Him and Breece Hall. I mean, those are 2 really good offensive pieces. If you're a Jets fan, you're really excited. So I'll say maybe for Garrett Wilson. And then as far as Treylon Burks goes, I don't know why, but I'm not faithful. Like, I know he'll be good, but will he be that good? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is he rookie of the year or offensive rookie of the year material? And in my book, I don't know if I'd put him over a couple of these players. Next up is Jameson Williams. What are your thoughts on him at plus 900?
I think he'll probably be the best any of the rookies. But I don't think he'll win it just because, again, he's recovering from his ACL tear. We don't know when he's going to play right away. And that's really my concern. I think he's going to be one hell of a player. And if he comes back and he plays in week 2 or week 3 and he doesn't start the year on the pub list or the PUP list, I would like this pick. Again, my guy is not on this list.
We'll get to that after we get through.
But no, I could see him doing it absolutely. Again, it's just the injury with him. But if he comes back week 2 or week 3, I could absolutely see it happening.
My pick for offensive rookie of the year is on this list, I will say.
I know.
But Kenneth Walker at plus 900 at 7.
If we're talking about offensive line, his offensive line scares me. And I know that they drafted their tackle this year, but his tackle is not a run blocking tackle. I mean, they drafted Charles Cross in the first round. And Charles Cross got drafted, and I said this on the thing, strictly because of his pass blocking ability. He played in the air raid offense where he was just asked to pass block, pass back, or pass block all the time.
Which is actually, it makes sense.
But he hasn't, I'm not saying he can't run block but I just haven't seen a lot So it really scares me, but he's an awesome player. But again, his offensive line concerns me a little bit.
Christian Watson at plus 1,100. Holy cow.
This is absurd. This is my second guy.
Okay.
He's playing with one of the best quarterbacks.
The best.
In the history
best in the league.
Well, I'm talking about the history of the NFL.
Oh, I'm saying right now.
Yeah, but I'm saying like in the history of the NFL, this dude is playing with one of the best quarterbacks.
Imagine having one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL and only pulling one Super Bowl out of it. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I just had to.
He versus the other wide receivers, he's not fighting for like these targets. This guy can step in and be wide receiver one pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him.
And then I think we can just, skim past Malik Willis at plus 1,100.
No, that's terrible. He's not playing this year.
And then 10 at, Chris Olave plus 1,200.
You could make some money off that for sure.
Yeah.
But it's just him. It's him not being the number one for me.
Yeah.
It depends on Michael Thomas. If Michael Thomas comes in and plays like he used to, there's no shot this dude is winning it. So it depends on how Michael Thomas is, how he is when he comes back.
And if
I could see a world, and if he can stay healthy, I could see a world where it happens. But last time we saw Michael Thomas play, he was one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Yeah.
So I have my doubts, not for the player, but for the system that he's in.
If it were legal for me to bet, okay, I'll say this. Let me go through my second five because I was about to just say my pick right now. So Jameson Williams, like you said, the ACL thing kind of scares me. That's a big injury. I would know, but I'd have hope for him. I'd say that he would be. I would say that he would be my number 2 wide receiver on here. And probably in my number 2 pick on this whole list. Kenneth Walker, like you said, offensive line is just iffy. That pass blocking tackle that you were talking about, I think is strictly because they have DK and Tyler Lockett. But then Christian Watson, this at 1,100 is just a steal. If I'm legal to bet, I'd be tossing $10 just because it's $10 on it. In all honesty, that'll win you a lot of money. And I think, maybe even $100. I don't know, depending on how much money you got to throw around. I would say that he would be the safest pick on this whole thing, just because he's surefire wide receiver 1, on Aaron Rodgers' offense. Like you said, Malik Willis not playing in his first season, and if it is, it's in case of injury. But I wouldn't say offensive rookie of the year. And then Chris Olave, I think, would be wide receiver 3 or player number 3 on this whole list for me. So it would go Christian Watson, Jameson Williams, Chris Olave for me, and then just everybody else behind those 3. No set order. But you said that your player is not on the list.
My bet, I should probably clarify, my bet's not on this list.
Yeah.
I think the guy most likely, most likely, I would say it's by far and away Christian Watson, and you're kind of not the smartest, not to poop on people, but not the smartest if you think it's anybody else. But the bet I would probably make would be George Pickens. I've been pretty vocal about my love for George Pickens, but it goes back to our conversation that we've talked about a lot of these other guys. It's the person throwing the football to him. Yeah. Whether it's Kenny Pickett, who is going to be a rookie, who's going to have to learn in, or I'm not on the same level as you for the Mitch Trubisky thing, but strictly just the value that you're going to get that bet at would be crazy. Yeah. And if his quarterbacks can produce good, he's the number 1 wide receiver on that team. He has the talent to be number 1 wide receiver in the league. He has the talent to be elite. He really does. And again, I don't know what it's at, but the value for whatever that plus a lot of money, I would guess, would be a lot. That'd probably be like a 10. Again, like you said, throw $10 down on it. again, his quarterback situation concerns me a little bit, but I really think he could be such a good player.
Yeah. All right. So that'll do it for, those picks. Let's move on. There were a lot of undrafted free agency signings just this past week. And I mean, it's bound to happen every year. It's just after the draft. So are there any players that kind of interest or intrigue you in terms of, whether or not they actually pan out, or, do you think they could find a roster spot? Do you think they could be starters somewhere? Was there anybody that's really stood out to you that you think is like, holy cow, that could be a steal?
Yeah, and I'm not just saying this because of the team, but I've been pretty vocal about my love for Carson Strong, and I think him becoming UDFA really shows us that there are some very serious medical concerns, because if there wasn't, the dude would have been drafted.
Yeah.
And for a team to not even take a shot on him in the 7th round really, really shows there are some medical concerns.
Yeah.
It concerns me. I like Jaden Wademeyer as a UDFA. His testing numbers are pretty bad. But I like Jaden Wademeyer. And then there's another guy I want to talk about, but I'm sure you will mention him. So
okay. I think that we're on the same page, because I'm just gonna say it right off the bat, and you could say it with me. John Ross.
John Ross?
Chiefs. Did I say John Ross?
Yeah, you said
Justin Ross. Jesus, Justin. Justin Ross.
Yep.
To the Chiefs. I mean, okay, let's just say the reason why they signed him as an undrafted free agent is because he can be, like, his ceiling is like surefire wide receiver 1, future Pro Bowler, but his floor is incredibly low, and it's because of his injury. It could be big, but the thing is like, I mean, this man has a lot of potential. And honestly, if he didn't get injured, he would have been a top 10 pick. There's no arguing that. But I mean, he had crazy potential in 2019. It's just unfortunate what happened to him in 2020 and then 2021. But that's who I have as far as just my first guy. And then do you want to move on to my second guy, or do you want to talk about that really quick?
Yeah. For me, if for those, I don't know how many people kind of really understand the situation that happened with him. If it was an injury, I would be far more likely to kind of be on board with it. But his problem wasn't an injury. He was like that. He had this thing since birth. And for those who don't know what it was, he had some awkward fusions in his spine in 2 different spots.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't like something he just got like hit hard and messed it up in a game. It was something he was born with. He messed it up. He had like he has a bad fusion. I don't know exactly what the problem was, but he had it in kind of his neck area and then his lower back area. And like there were I think it was like 10 doctors before the guy agreed to it, but there were like 10 people. Like, he had to retire from football. Dabo Sweeney had to call him in and say like, yo, like, this is a concern. Like, you cannot play football anymore. And like, that was a concern. Like, people are saying like he was never ever going to play football again. There were doctors that did not want to perform the surgery with how darn bad it was, until one doctor came along and said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Which is, again, like he almost had to retire. And then that's the thing. Like, one bad hard hit can like take this dude out. And does he have potential? I mean, we saw what he did in national championship. I think it would have been 2017. After that national championship run that they made in the playoffs, where like this dude's getting, like you said, this dude's a top 5 pick. He's going first round, no doubt. But after, having to medically retire from football and having numerous doctors tell you that they don't want to help you with this, yeah, it concerns me just a little bit. And then he's had other few minor injuries as well, which makes me question how injury prone this guy is. But what were you saying?
Yeah. I honestly just think
immense upside.
Yeah, that's huge. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it kind of rubbed me the wrong way that the Bears wanted to use their 7th round pick on the, punter position. I this guy's available, why not take a shot on him? He's right there. Give him a shot. If it doesn't pan out, hey, guess what? Didn't pan out. You didn't give up that much for him. It's a 7th round pick. Or, hey, he's an undrafted free agent. Might as well give him a shot. And, if you have Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs, it's like, yeah, we have a top 3 quarterback in the league. I'll say it, whatever. I just think there's, with that immense upside, like you said, there's so much that he can do, but it's more so, will he be able to do it? And you're not signing him to that contract just yet. So, I mean, why not see what he can do in training camp or whatever and see if he can land a spot? I would definitely try it out. Next up, and it's another Clemson boy. Tell you what, Braden Galloway, Clemson player, tight end. He's signed by the Bears, and I think with the pass rush that he's been able to do, I've watched a little bit of film ever since they signed him. I think it's possible that he can land a spot. I don't think that he'd be like a surefire starter, but it's definitely somebody that I would like to kind of keep track of a little bit, just to see, can he be that run blocking tight end? And then can Cole Kmet be like that number 1 target, for, the Bears? I mean, can Cole Kmet be that, Travis Kelce for Justin Fields? I don't think Cole Kmet's on the same level, you know what I mean, as Travis Kelce, at least not yet. But I don't know. That duo's got potential, and when it comes to run blocking, I mean, Braden Galloway can be that guy. What were your? I mean, do you know much about him? Do you have any thoughts on it?
No. I'm gonna be honest. I don't. You said he went to Clemson?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the first time in like 5 or 6 years that I hadn't paid attention to Clemson.
Okay.
They just this year Clemson as a whole, it just was nowhere near as good as what they've been in the past few years.
Mhm.
But like you said, I mean, they can produce a lot of good UDFAs, and I hate to keep it hounding on this, but the Eagles freaking killed it in UDFAs.
Yeah.
I Mario Goodrich, he was a corner who went to Clemson. I think he should have been drafted. Like, he had like a 5th or 6th round grade. So the fact the Eagles could have got him there. Josh Jobs was a guy that a lot of people talked about him being drafted. I think even a guy like Mel Kiper was even shocked this guy didn't get drafted. He too was also on an Eagle. But like a dude, Sterling Weatherford, I think his name is. He went to the Colts. He was a safety that I'm also very surprised didn't get drafted. He's 6'4". He's kind of in the same mold as like a Kyle Hamilton-esque.
Okay.
It'll be fun to see if he can get something done in the NFL.
Yeah.
I was, again, kind of shocked that he didn't get drafted. I think it goes back to his the level of competition that he kind of played at. He didn't play at the best level of competition.
Yeah.
He played at Miami. Miami, but it's not the Miami that everybody was talking about. It's not Miami at Miami. It's not the U. It's he played Miami, Ohio.
Yeah.
So you have to go back to competition is important. And it's something that the teams value. But I think this dude, like I said, he's in the Kyle Hamilton mold. I'm not saying he's Kyle Hamilton. It's pretty nice. Nobody like Kyle Hamilton, but that's another guy. He went to the Colts again. And with them losing Rock Ya-Sin in that trade this year, it'll be fun to see how he does. I think it was a good spot for him.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next segment. What we're gonna do is the NFL draft winners and losers. And then we've got a more fun segment after that. I want to lead us off with, it's a clear-cut winner for the draft. And I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. I just think, I know.
It hurts.
Kyle Hamilton, man. At 14, that was a really, really good start. And then, even though they had to trade away Hollywood Brown, they bumped up.
Stupid return for him too.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
They got Tyler Linderbaum, David Ojabo as well. Oh my gosh, dude, Daniel Falele as well later on. I think it was a great draft for Baltimore. There's plenty of options in free agency where they could move, and get somebody. Dare I say Jarvis Landry would be a good spot there. I think that would be really interesting to put him there, or even OBJ. So, I think that the Ravens are in a really good spot, and they improved in a crucial time as well. Especially in a really, really stacked AFC North as well. So, what are your thoughts? Like, can you give me one of your winners as well?
Yeah, as for the Ravens, it was the draft was so good. And again, as I said, I don't know how many people listen to our mock draft videos. But before David Ojabo got injured, I'm like, this dude is going going to the Ravens at number 14 because of all the connections. And for them to get him, a guy that was, again, at some point in the season, obviously his injury, and we'll see how he comes back from that.
Mm-hmm.
And more so than the ACL or LCL or something, we've seen Achilles are a little bit tougher to come back from than some of the other major injuries. But at one point, this dude was viewed as a top 15 pick. So to get him at 45 is huge.
That's awesome.
I don't have to express to you guys how I feel about Daniel Falele or Kyle Hamilton. I've been pretty vocal about that, and for them to get Travis Jones in the third round too is crazy. They significantly improved, and they really took, again, Lamar being hurt really, I wouldn't say help them. Obviously, you don't want your franchise quarterback to get hurt, but for him to be hurt, that allowed them to make so much higher than what their actual team is like. So if their team can stay healthy this year, and this talent that at least seems really good right now can come in and produce, they look really scary. But for me, the Jets, dude,
so good.
For them to get the best cornerback, for them to get the best cornerback, not CB or not QB, CB, for them to get the best cornerback is crazy. I'm surprised he went after, or I'm surprised Sauce wasn't the first CB pick, but for them to get Sauce and then to greatly upgrade the wide receiver position for Zach Wilson, who we've already talked about, and Garrett Wilson is crazy. But then they saw I would say one of the biggest shockers kind of with Nakobe Dean as well, because Nakobe Dean fell. But like JJ,
Jermaine Johnson.
I don't know why I'm calling that. Yeah, Jermaine Johnson. One of the biggest shockers when it comes to falling, for them to be able to kind of recognize that and kind of swoop in and snag him is huge. They got three very, very, very impactful players. It's so darn good. And then as we talked about before, they improved and they got Breece Hall.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and say it. Their offense looks pretty good right now. They got their weapons for their young quarterback to, take control. They bumped up their offensive line just slightly. And then on top of all the things that you said as well, Jeremy Ruckert too, later on. He's a very well-rounded tight end, I think. I think he can make a pretty solid impact later on. This upcoming season, and kind of give him a good target as well as be able to block for him. If he needs to go and see if he can chuck the ball down to Garrett Wilson down the field and everything. Also, I think it's really cool that Garrett Wilson and Jeremy Ruckert get to stay teammates, in New York. That's really cool. Man, I'm a huge fan of this Jets draft. And, we were talking about it before, just last episode, or maybe it was after last episode. But I mean, those Jets look like they could potentially be a little dangerous, given the right opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and move on to my next winner. And in all honesty, I mean, I think in all honesty, I think the Lions won. I mean, really, yeah. I think it's clear cut. They got a really, really good edge rusher, and then they got a really, really good wide receiver in the first round. And it's just like, what more? They traded with a division rival to whenever you can trade with a division rival and get a really good player, I mean, it's just stupid. It's stupid how crazy, that can go down. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, the Lions improved, and they just they made my point, basically for when I said just a few weeks back that the Lions were potentially making the playoffs next year. I'll be honest. I think they're dangerous, and I'm actually kind of scared to see what they can do next season as well. So as a Bears fan, I mean, it's like, can we end up beating these Lions? Is it actually possible? Call it a bold take or whatever, but I don't think the Bears are on the Lions level right now. We looked at power rankings and stuff after the draft and everything. The Lions are, I mean, obviously over the Bears, and I agree with it. And it sucks right now as, a Bears fan, but it's like, if a lot of people want to knock Jared Goff, but they forget that he took the Rams to a Super Bowl as well. So it's like, and I'm not saying the Lions are Super Bowl bound or whatever, but it's like they have a lot of upside. They could do a lot. Maybe get to the playoffs is probably like the biggest thing right now, and I think that they could do it.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. I mean, the draft as a whole, I thought was really good.
Oh yeah.
Me and you, I mean, even outside of those two picks, they got an edge rusher. I think good value for him, nothing crazy, but Josh Pascal.
Yes,
he was a good pick. But then they got Kirby Joseph, who I think, outside of like the top 5 big guys at safety that we pretty much talked about through the entire process. Outside of Hamilton, Brisker, Petrie, Daxton Hill, and Lewisine, he was the next guy up for them. So for them to get him in the 3rd round was awesome. And this guy I didn't really talk enough about, but they got one of my favorite players in the draft in James Mitchell. I think I talked about him a little bit on the podcast, but he was definitely a guy I voiced to you that I really liked. I just think they had such a solid all-around draft. It was a very good draft for them. Yeah.
Really quick. Okay, so we're just gonna cut to winners this week. So I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think the Bears are winners of this whole draft. I think it's awesome, and this can segue into our next segment as well. But I mean, Kyler Gordon at 39. I feel like might have been a little early, but at the same time, I mean, he's a good starting quality corner that I was just like, all right, this guy's a dog. I'm not even worried about it. Like, this guy can come in and he can start immediately. The secondary got better with that pick, right? Then we go on and we look at the 2nd round and you get Jaquan Brisker, and it's like, oh my God, the Bears actually got a lot better now. The secondary is, I would say the secondary's fixed, and I didn't even see these 2 players play yet in pads and, a jersey for the Bears. Like, I would say the secondary is fixed. We have a very young secondary now. You have Kyler Gordon on the other side of Johnson. You have Eddie Jackson and Jaquan Brisker. It's like, that is a pretty decent secondary. I really like that, right? So then you move on. You look at Velus Jones Jr., which is like, okay, all right, pump the brakes. This man is 25 years old. Why are you using a 3rd-round pick on him when, there's some other options that you could potentially use, the pick on? And I think it strictly falls under not only – well, let me just say I like the pick. I like it, contrary to popular belief, and we'll argue about it, and it's okay. I want to go pick by pick just on the Bears just because it's my Bears. But, I like it. After that, Braxton Jones in the 5th round. Awesome. Tackle, right? Dominique Robinson in the 5th round. Solid edge rusher that Eberflus can, totally just come in and develop. And then when they get rid of Robert Quinn within the next year, you have a solid young edge rusher that you spent a 5th-round pick on that I think can potentially do some pretty solid things as well. Then you have Zach Thomas in the 6th round, right? And keep in mind, the Bears actually traded a bunch of picks as well in this draft. They were very active. And I think for that, it shows not only the GM wants to be aggressive, but they also want to find that help for Justin Fields as far as their offensive line goes. They have Treston Ebner, a running back, which I was kind of questioning. You have Doug Kramer out of Illinois. It was a center. This man's a dog. He can come in and develop and be potentially a backup, but who knows, Then you have Ja'Tyre Carter, another offensive lineman, and then, Elijah Hicks, another safety. And then lastly, Trenton Gill, a punter, which is okay, well, we needed a punter, so it's fine. But you cannot sit here and tell me that they do not care about Justin Fields.
No, stop. You absolutely, yes, you can. You can.
Okay, all right, yes, let's argue about this.
No, stop. I understand. They you drafted all these late round offensive linemen. Fine. You can say, they care. No, they don't. If they would, Bernard Ryman was on the board. Yes. A dude that at times was projected to go in the 1st round of the draft. Mm-hmm. And for you guys to be like, no, we're gonna get a cornerback. Mind you, I like Kyler Gordon, but Kyler Gordon, when he comes in this first year, he's not gonna blow you guys away. He has awesome traits. He's gonna be an awesome developmental guy, and he has awesome traits, and I do think in 2 or 3 years he's going to be awesome. But for you guys to take a guy like that over a Bernard Raymond, for you to protect your quarterback, your franchise guy, and for you guys to draft Velus Jones, I'm sorry. I mean, there are other wide receivers too that I liked before him, and that's crazy. And I understand, for you guys to draft these developmental pieces at offensive line, guys that are not going to start, and for you to use that as proof that you guys are going to protect him, awesome. There were guys on free agency that you guys could have signed.
There's still plenty of them.
I understand that, but you haven't. But you haven't signed him. You haven't signed those guys yet. So for you, to say that you guys drafted these guys to help him, I'm just going to push back on that. Yeah, you spent 5th-round picks on offensive linemen. Fantastic.
Are you mad because they passed on George Pickens and Sky Moore?
George Pickens, guys like George Pickens. I'm not too mad about the whole Sky
Would you
Moore.
Would you say that David Bell would have been a better pick than Velus Jones?
I have been significantly lower on David Bell, but I like David Bell. I think Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama is better. I think Danny Gray out of SMU is better. I think Romeo Dobbs, who the freaking Packers got in the 4th round, is better. Calvin Austin, I think, is a better than than these guys. I don't think Velus Jones can come in and produce even as number 2 wide receiver. He has speed, which is awesome, but I don't think he can come in and produce.
Let me just counter your argument here. So What people aren't necessarily looking at is the fact that the Bears not only wanted to get that big wide receiver for Justin Fields, right? Because it's clear that it's a need. Everybody and their mother knows about that. The offensive line was also a big need. And then if you look at it, I mean, the secondary was god-awful last season.
Yeah.
You need to improve that. And the thing is when you have a defensive-minded head coach, you also want to be on the same page as him. Let's face it, there was a lot of talent that fell in the 2nd round. I mean, between, Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker. I mean, Jaquan Brisker was going, in the first round, maybe early second round in some mock drafts. To get him at where
I
they
think
got
you
him,
guys had a good draft. It has nothing to do with your
I'm
guys'
just saying,
draft.
when
It's
it
the
comes
fact you're
to,
not helping Justin Fields.
but you are though, and the thing is not only are you, I understand everybody's like, you need to go ahead and you need to help your quarterback by getting him weapons. Yes, that is a huge thing, but in order to get him weapons, you need to invest in your future and protect him so he doesn't get hurt. And
But you
in
didn't do
doing
that.
that, but in doing that, you have to get a solid amount of offensive line help, and they spent majority of their picks on that. It's like they're emphasizing on that. And not only that, but they had Justin Fields involved in their wide receiver scouting. It's like if Justin Fields wanted, hey, I want you guys to get George Pickens. Do you think that they would have taken Kyler Gordon there? Or do you think that they would have picked George Pickens? Or do you think, let's say Sky Moore, we want Sky Moore, right? Well, guess what? Sky Moore is a smaller option. We've already talked about this during this episode. I never saw Sky Moore going to the Bears in the first place. But if you think about it, I mean, look, Justin Fields literally had a say in the wide receiver scouting. He said, look, I just want this guy. That's all I want right now. And with limited picks, who knew? I mean, they didn't know that these trades were going to go through either. So they didn't know like who was going to be available at, in the fifth round and a pick that we don't have. Like, you know what I mean? Like they weren't going to go ahead and count their chickens before they're hatched. They wanted to make sure that they could trade for that. And then they go ahead and, they obviously exhausted every option as far as offensive linemen, but like you did literally all that you could in terms of protecting your quarterback and your future in terms of offensive line by drafting all of them, or not all of them, by like using majority of your picks in that. And so for that, I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. Not only that, but they also have a ton of money for next year. They have plenty of resources. They can go out and sign offensive linemen that are on the board still as far as free agents. Have they signed them yet? No, but do they have plenty of time to do so? Absolutely. It's like they're doing research on them. They're definitely doing their homework. They've drafted different options, and nobody's even crediting them for potentially wanting to get younger. I mean, can they develop offensive linemen? Think about this for a second.
No.
The Bears, who knows?
And we haven't seen that is my problem with them taking taking these late round guys. We have no clue how your guys' offensive line is going to work out. And for you guys to not take a guy like Abraham Lucas, who was still on the board, for you guys not to take a Bernard Raymond, who was still there, and to bank on these guys in the background to protect your future, like you can have awesome depth, and like these guys will be fine depth pieces. And as a whole, your guys' draft is fine, but when you dig into it and you look, your quarterback is still, as of right now, strictly just looking at your guys' draft, running for his life because you guys didn't protect him. You can't bank on a fifth or sixth or seventh round pick to become anything. But to say Abraham Lucas in the second round, to say Bernard Raymond in the second round, that's so much more of a safer option than the guy in the fifth round. And that's far less development that you're going to have to take versus a guy in the fifth or sixth or seventh round that we don't know what your offensive line coach is going to do. We don't know what his pedigree looks like. We don't know if he can do that. And for you to bank on that to say, hey, Justin Fields, we're going to stick you behind an offensive line of fifth and sixth and seventh round picks, pretty much outside of Taven Jenkins, and to say we're going to stick you behind that, go and have fun, is my problem. The wide receiver is fine. Like, I understand the wide receivers. I'm not harping on that. It's the lack of offensive line that he didn't get until the fifth and sixth and seventh round. These high-end talents concerns me. And you can draft awesome depth, but it doesn't doesn't matter how good your depth is if your offensive starters are dog water.
I mean, okay, the Bears did end up signing some offensive linemen, not as of recently, but they did their due diligence in the before the draft and everything, which is good. And people don't even recognize that either. It's like, oh no, they just don't exist. For example, I mean, would you say that the Colts offensive line was pretty solid last year, right?
Yeah, it was fine
I
offensive
mean,
line.
Jonathan Taylor was able to break free and, have a record-breaking season for, or I don't know if it was record-breaking per se, but
a pretty darn good season. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, take it from somebody that had him on his fantasy team, let's rub that in a little bit. Okay, Julian Davenport, offensive tackle from Indy. I mean, he started a few games for him last year, did a pretty solid job, I'd say. That's pretty good. Dakota Dozier, I mean, he's another offensive tackle. They did their due diligence. Justin oh wait, no, he's defensive line. Sorry. I'm skimming over their signings right now. Lucas Patrick, right?
None of these are high end though. That's what you guys.
Lucas Patrick started for the Packers, man.
Years and years and years. You guys have had a hodgepodge of an offensive line, and that's what it continues to be. But it's fine. I don't think it's going to be a terrible offensive line, but Justin Fields needs an elite offensive lineman to work with, and all you guys are giving him is like trash that nobody else wants.
Dude, if you think about it, though, I mean, do you think that they had any say in Tavon Armstead's signing? Do you think that they offered him? He just didn't go.
It's the draft that I'm talking about.
But the draft, right? So, like, okay, I'm just saying, because the narrative right now is that, oh, man, like, the front office has done absolutely nothing for Justin Fields this whole offseason. Like, not only just the draft, but just the narrative, just the fact that, oh, man, like, he hasn't done anything. No, he's signed 3 offensive linemen to come in and compete for a tackle spot. He knows that Tevin Jenkins still is on the board. I think Tevin Jenkins can be a really good starter. He just was given a crappy opportunity this past season. He dove into a spot that, I mean, let's face it, he just wasn't. He wasn't prepared for it yet. When Jason Peters got out, he was like, well, let's throw you into the fire, basically. I just think, man, this guy has so much potential.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, when you have Lucas Patrick coming in from Green Bay, I guarantee you one of the Green Bay coaches that we signed had a say in that, especially the wide receiver coach. Not, and it sounds weird. It sounds weird. But the wide receiver coach probably was like, hey, look, like your center is pretty important. Lucas Patrick, free agent. Guess what? If you got somebody that can protect you to throw the ball downfield like that deep threat Justin Fields knows how to do, I guarantee you this guy can probably get the job done. And that's probably why former offensive lineman, Ryan Poles probably signed like, hey, guess what? We're going to bring him in on top of other guys. And then they're just like, look, let's try and develop these other guys. Saying that their new offensive line coach cannot develop a player before it actually happens is just bull crap.
I said you can't bank. You can't
sure
come in
can.
and
you can totally bank on somebody to do their job. It's just a thing.
No, you can't. You can't. Not in the NFL. You know how many offensive line? No,
an offensive line
I'm
coach.
Not saying you can't. And I'm not saying your guys' offensive line.
If you're not banking on them, if you're not banking on your coaches, how can you draft in general?
I haven't seen anything from him, dude.
So why are you saying that he can't do it?
I didn't say you can't. I said you can't bank on it.
Oh, dude,
to go in and saying, "Yep, we think this dude can turn a 5th round pick into a starter for our quarterback," is crazy.
I think it's possible.
If they think it's possible, why wasn't he a 2nd round pick? Why wasn't he a 3rd round pick? Why wasn't he a 4th round pick?
You have free agents that you can use until they are ready. That's the mentality. You sign offensive linemen. You draft even more.
You guys haven't signed or drafted a high-end person. You guys continuously throw outside of Tavon Jenkins. I don't want to trash on Tavon. I thought
no.
Was an awesome pick
Cody Whitehair is pretty solid too.
Cody Whitehair.
He can play right guard and center. I know he is, but you can't count him out because
my thing is it's hodgepodge. Like you guys and this is my point. If you guys have to banking on anything, if you guys have to be like, well, maybe he can do this, or maybe this guy can turn out, that's a problem. Especially
they
when
obviously
you're
assess that before the draft, though.
But my thing is you guys like haven't invested main resources into him. It's a mismatch of guys that are not being re-signed by the teams, mind you, for a reason. If teams really liked these guys, they would have extended them before they hit the market. And in 5th round picks and 6th round picks and 7th round picks, it's you guys aren't investing elite high end assets into the position, and that is my problem. obviously guys can turn out on it. I hope that all the 5th and 6th and 7th round picks you guys do, turn out. But to not invest high end picks into it to protect your franchise quarterback is a problem. It just is.
All I gotta say is, and I tweeted this out, just watch. They have a plan. Give them 2 years to sort it out.
It's a draft though, and that's what I like.
You're gonna have narratives. You're gonna have narratives, and when you have passionate fans like me that are gonna get super amped up about it, why not post the article? But at the end of the day, you can't you just can't count them out just yet.
You can't count them. They haven't proven anything yet.
Just let them be. Let them do what they're setting out to do, and if it works out, it works out. If not, then it doesn't. You have plenty of money next season to use.
Yeah.
You can. You've got plenty of fallback. As far as that segment goes, I'm going to go ahead and just get out of there, okay? Because we still have to do gridiron goofs. We aren't doing 3 bold takes this week, but we are doing gridiron goofs as we always do. Which Ben, I think our gridiron goofs for this week pretty exciting. I like
fun.
it.
Yes.
Top 5 actors, and I think I'm gonna take
actresses as well, just for everybody listening. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna take a different approach to it, so it might not be just entirely like overall actors, because I'm really like comedy movies. It's just how I am. I don't know. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. So I don't want to talk too much, but Ben, I'm going to go ahead and give you the first pick because I'm just a generous person, and let's do it.
Oh, what a nice guy. Well, again, this is such you could do so much with this. People have different views. As I've said before on the podcast, big Toy Story guy. So it's really hard for me to not pick Tom Hanks.
Okay.
I love Tom Hanks so much, and he has such a wide range. Dude played Forrest Gump and then turned around and played a Cowboys and a kid movie. So
yeah. For me, okay. This is okay. I don't know how you're gonna draft, so I don't know who I'm gonna pick first. That's huge. Okay, I'm just gonna do it because I love him. Will Ferrell.
See, I probably wouldn't have picked Will Ferrell.
Probably not first overall, but you know what? I probably wouldn't
have it even in the first place. I honestly tend to forget he exists. I'm just gonna be honest.
Oh my god, he's got some great movies.
He's funny. He's so funny. But I don't think when I think of good actors, I probably wouldn't have picked him personally. I'm deciding between two people here right now.
I know my next.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm deciding between 2 people. They're fairly similar, so I'm going to give one away. No, I don't actually think they're similar at all. Well,
I will say this: my picks are not going to correlate at all.
This dude has such a beautiful voice. We're going to go. That should have just given away. We're going to do Morgan Freeman.
Okay. I feel like you forgot about this, and that's why you didn't take it. But I'm gonna go Leonardo DiCaprio for my number 2 pick.
I was really hoping you were gonna forget about him. I'm gonna be honest.
God, he's so good. No matter what movie he's in, he kills it every single time. Never fails.
Yeah. Dang. All right. Well, we're gonna go with a good Samuel L. Jackson here.
All right. Let's see.
This is hard. There's so many good. I could go with so many different people.
We're gonna catch a lot of heat for it because a lot of people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, you didn't take so and so," and I'm gonna be like, you know what? You think of every actor ever and just try and piece together your all-star team. Oh man. Okay. I really like this one actor, but I'm trying to figure out. His name's not coming to mind for whatever reason.
What movie is he in?
I know it. Okay, give me Kevin Costner. We watch Draft Day. It's a tradition. We watch Draft Day. God, he's so good in that movie. So yeah. And he's, I mean, that just underestimates all the rest of his work as well too. I'm surprised if you guys are still listening to it. Thank you guys for making it this far, because like I'm sure our picks are making a lot of people mad right now. So
I'm sure we're getting people pretty furious right now. Okay, this is tough. Oh my goodness, dude, there's so many people I could go. Part of me wants to go with Johnny Depp. He has such a wide range. Robert Downey Jr. Okay. Well, Interstellar is one of my favorite movies ever. And this dude's pretty weird in the Lincoln commercials. I don't know why the Lincoln commercials are laid out the way they are. They probably gave it away though. But we're doing Matthew McConaughey, who too is also a huge football fan. He loves Texas. Like he goes to every Texas game. Like he's on the sidelines of like the Texas football games.
Really,
like, they use him as like a recruiter darn near. Oh, yeah. Matthew McConaughey is loved.
Oh man. Okay.
There's an actress too that like just to do it.
We can definitely give our props to certain actors as well afterwards, but because we only have one pick left.
I know.
It's really tough for me to go ahead and pick my last. Oh wait, no, no. I'll go ahead and say it. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I'll go with at number 4. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, yeah. So one pick left for both of us now. What's your pick?
Part of me, like as a joke, just wants to do Danny DeVito because I love Danny DeVito so darn much.
I just thought of somebody. I love it. Okay.
Part of me, you know what? I don't even care. I don't. We're gonna do it, and people aren't gonna agree, and I don't care. She is just a phenomenal actor. We're actress, I guess. And again, I think people will probably not agree with this. But that's what the 5th round pick is supposed to be for.
Yeah.
This
whole draft's controversial. So
yeah, but we're doing this strictly just out of my love for this actress, Sandra Bullock. She's so good. She is so good.
And you also probably think she's hot, right? That's probably why.
I just think she's a good actor.
Anyway,
get your freaking head out of the gutters. No.
Hey, we can save that draft for another day. Okay.
No, stop it. You're getting this canceled. Okay.
I'm just
kidding. No. Yeah. No. You're good. No, dude. She was in The Blind Side.
So good.
She was in Bird Box.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everybody loves to talk about Bird Box. She was in a comedy in the movie called The Heat. I don't know if many people know that. But she's so good. Like every movie that I think I've seen her in, I think she did a very good job.
Yeah. Well,
Ocean 8, that was a
to go ahead and let me just say, I'll give you props because Tom Hanks is a great pick, first overall.
Yes.
But there's one person that everybody kind of forgets about because unfortunately he passed away.
Yeah, I was debating about going him. I'm going to be honest with you.
I don't think you're on the same page. I'm a big superhero guy, right? I love superheroes, but and I can't hear you right now. Oh yeah, you're muted. Anyway, I love superheroes, but the best part about a superhero movie is a good villain. And the best villain of all time in any movie, any superhero movie that I've ever watched, nobody has come close to Heath Ledger's job in The Dark Knight. So give me Heath Ledger in the 5th round.
Not where I thought you were going with when you said dead actor in superhero movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you know exactly where my head was going with that.
I'm trying to think. Oh, Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman, yeah.
He's a good actor too.
He's great.
Also in Draft Day.
Yeah. Draft Day is a phenomenal movie.
Dude, it's so good. It's so stacked. Anyway.
But, dude, I could have went Dude, just
a little
as,
fun
like,
fact for you, really quick, while we're on the topic for draft day, and I didn't realize that until this year, until I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. You know the head coach in draft day?
Yeah.
You know what other movie he's in?
His face looks very familiar.
Think more about his voice.
Who?
Ice Age.
Hmm.
This man's Diego.
He's Diego. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did know that.
Oh man, that's insane. I was sitting there like, what? Like, this man is Diego? Like, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. For like other people though that like I was thinking about, like I was thinking about a Denzel Washington.
Mhm.
Another dude that I was so tempted to, because he was such a good actor, was Robert Williams. Rest in
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah.
I was so tempted. Brad Pitt, you could have added to that list. Robert Downey Jr.,
Mhm.
Kevin Spacey, and Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, yeah.
So Will Smith.
Will Smith, I almost actually picked. Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Damon.
Matt
Gosh,
Damon. Oh, dude, there's so many.
there is
Ryan Reynolds,
Yes.
dude.
Oh my goodness. Yes, dude.
Anyway, all right, guys. If you made it this far, we want to say thank you for listening all the way through. We hope you you enjoyed listening. Wow, to this week's episode of the Pigskin Project. We do have a lot scheduled for next week's show, as we always do. You know, we have our extensive work done for every show to bring you guys the best content possible. But you know, we have more off-season previews as always. Much more in store for next week. So make sure that you're subscribed or following us on all platforms. Down below in like the little banner ticker guy, you guys will see Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all that jazz. We'd also like to give a big thank you to Anchor.fm and Uppercuts Grooming for helping us promote our podcast. And please leave a review down below, as it helps us more than you know. And that's it for this week. So thanks again for tuning in to the Pigskin Project, brought to you by Overtime Sports Network as well. So, all right, everybody, have a good week. See you guys next Friday.